The Bay Area is one of the wealthiest regions in the world. We generate enough wealth to sustain all people, but our economy prioritizes profit over people time and time again.
So the Bay Area economy, it's a really vibrant economy, but it's also an economy that is growing in terms of inequality. I mean, it's mind-blowing to think that California as a state is among the top 10 economies in the entire world. And that's because the financial sector, the tourism sector, the tech sector, they're all growing, but they're not growing for everyone.
Oakland is now a destination place. It's become a commodity. But the grueling labor that makes this city function is often invisible.
I think we get co-opted into a particular narrative that we aren't even aware of. Even within the movement, we are constantly busy, we are constantly in motion, we are constantly engaging in work, right? This system thrives off of us being constantly busy. This system thrives off of us having to work so hard that we don't have the brain power for anything else, and we don't have the heart to invest in community. This economy relies on us being exploited. This economy relies on us not having the bandwidth to do anything about it. For me, the beauty of focusing on a moral economy is it stops us from being focused just on the numbers and helps us move into the glory, the beauty, the heart that we all want to be connected to.
For the past 20 years, EBASE, a small nonprofit based in Oakland, has fought for economic justice.
The work that EBASE has done has been tremendous because it's really about looking at where is the economy growing, where are people left out, and how do we leverage policy to make sure that everyone can benefit.
EBASE works to advance economic and racial justice by building broad coalitions that can tackle huge opportunities and threats in our economy and do so in a way that really centers and builds the power of low-wage workers, of people of color, tenants, and immigrants. You know, what I've seen over time in Oakland is, we see kind of the boom and bust cycles of the economy, but the reality is for some of our communities, there's like a perpetual state of crisis.
I literally never imagined that Oakland could possibly ever be less than 25% Black. I never imagined that I would ever see that. And so to be living in the midst of that is every day is like I walk outside and I want to cry every single day. It's heartbreaking. It's like a grieving process.
Years ago, the tech boom in '99 created a similar economic upswing. The dot-com era brought a lot of wealth into the Bay Area, but that influx of resources also failed to uplift everyone. It was during that time EBASE was created.
EBASE had very humble beginnings. We started actually at a desk in the Union Hall, so we didn't have our own office. We had one phone for all of the staff, and at that time the thing that we were seeing is that the economic prosperity that was being created by that tech boom was actually leaving some people stranded, and specifically low-wage workers, people of color. You know, in many ways, that's what we're seeing now on a much broader scale. And that's really the context in which we started EBASE, because we felt like there needed to be more equity, and that good economic times should benefit lots of people, not just a narrow class of certain people.
I feel like religion sometimes gets a bad rap because it gets misused so badly and so often. And I think what we miss when we focus on all the ways that religion has been misused is we miss that the sacred texts, they all talk about a divine who over and over says, your community will not survive if you don't treat your workers with dignity. In large part, that's why I'm involved in EBASE, is we need to recognize the dignity of all work. We need to recognize the fullness of the lives and the value of all people, particularly the folks that this city has relied on to build it. The tragedy and part of the ways that this wealth economy and this exploitation economy misshape folks with resources is they don't know how much they need something outside of themselves that's bigger than themselves, because they've come to think that they are God.
You know, EBASE has a really long history of working in the hospitality industry and changing conditions for hotel housekeepers who are mostly women of color.
Hotel work is extremely hard. It's very physically taxing. You know, each one of those spotless, clean rooms that you stay in to have a comfortable night's sleep is being cleaned by a housekeeper who's unfortunately sometimes only gets 15, 20 minutes to clean the entire room.
Before Measure C was passed, entry-level hotel workers made an average of $8.12 per hour. The average salary was $18 at that time in the East Bay. Hotel workers were earning less than half of that.
Back in 2005, when we were working on the Measure C campaign, Emeryville was very much a company town. And so, you know, the campaign was tough, but we persevered and we were able to get a majority of residents of Emeryville to vote in favor of it. And when it went into effect, the hotels didn't stop opposing it. And so EBASE organized the workers at various hotels to really speak out against the wage theft, really, that was going on in the hotels in the city.
When I came to EBASE, it was the middle of the fight at the Woodfin Hotel in Emeryville. So this was a horrible, nasty boss who fired the workers right before the holidays because they were standing up for their wages under the law. He did all kinds of horrible, nasty things, intimidating his workers, calling ICE on his workers. And these were, mostly women of color, immigrant hotel workers who were already working incredibly hard, right? They talked about how because they turned so many beds in a day, they would go home and their arms were so sore they couldn't pick up their kids. And they were facing these huge obstacles and they were there every day, right? Like they were on the picket line, they were in the street, they were confronting this boss. And so for me, being able to walk alongside and be in solidarity with these workers and see their fight, teaches me that, I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna be right there and we're gonna be right there together and we're gonna fight until we win. Emeryville was not a progressive center 15 or 20 years ago. It's taken a lot of work by EBASE and our partners to get there. And now Emeryville has the highest minimum wage in the country. It has one of the strongest fair scheduling policies in the country, right? So you see that it's possible, it's actually possible to change what happens in place over time.
It was really important for us to pass Measure Z because workers are working in these rooms alone. You have, unfortunately, guests who don't respect the women who work in the rooms, who think that they can touch them inappropriately. And Measure Z really went to change that by giving room cleaners panic buttons and by requiring that the hotels actually did something about it.
Bueno, para empezar, yo a todo el mundo, a toda la gente que podía votar, yo le decía, por favor, vota por la medida Z, es para nosotros los trabajadores, a mi maestro, a todo mundo, porque yo sabía lo importante que era para nosotros los trabajadores. Entonces, me siento bien orgullosa de poder haber sido parte de esta campaña y siempre agradeciendo a mi local 2850 siempre y ahí EBASE por supuesto que siempre nos apoyó y yo esto lo pensé para la gente que no tiene ninguna protección, que son quienes más necesitan y siempre están más desprotegidos y más descobijados de las leyes.
I'm formerly incarcerated, and honestly, I have no problem sharing that with people. Sometimes, every now and then, someone asks me, why do you share that? I said, for a couple reasons. First of all, no one should feel shame of anything they've been through. Let's be real, all of us made mistakes.
The revolutionary work that we've been a part of has really been the ways that we are pushing back on very oppressive systems in our communities. For me, I think a lot around the Ban the Box and the Fair Chance Hire work that we've done over the years, where policies and practices are in place in companies that just dismisses and disregards like whole sets of our community, folks that have, done their time.
So when you got that box on there, have you been convicted of a felony? I feel like once you mark yes, it's like a kicker. It will automatically just boot your application out of the system.
I mean, it's good to have a job, but if you got a job and it's paying you $7 an hour, but your food is costing you $15 an hour, then you don't really have a good job. You got a job. So we wanted jobs, and we want them to be here for a long time.
EBASE's work has often been to look at where are there these large-scale threats where we can build broad coalitions, where there's enough, different interests on our side and come together to build enough power to win.
The policies that we won on the Oakland Army base, both the 2012 policy on the city side and the 2016 policy on the port side, were groundbreaking nationally. The restriction on temp workers and temp agencies in the warehousing industry had never been done before, and is such a cornerstone for making the warehousing industry a good industry to work in. And the fair chance policy that we won at the Port of Oakland is the second strongest in the country. So we're talking about real opportunities for formerly incarcerated folks to work on that base and to get jobs in the warehousing industry.
We know there's a housing crisis everywhere in the state of California and acutely in the Bay Area, but we see that it is playing out most aggressively on immigrants and people of color. They are the ones receiving the brunt of the market forces. For me, the issue of immigrant rights and tenant rights seems really inseparable, especially here in Concord in the landscape we're working in.
So Concord's political landscape looks different than what you think of when you think about the Bay Area and places like Oakland and San Francisco. Concord looks different in the sense that there is not as much organizing infrastructure in place already. So if you think about the suburbs were created as a result of white flight, so it has very, a history of racism, and you can't really take away that history.
Here in Concord, there are no protections. The reality is people can get evicted for no reason, and it's perfectly legal.
We, the people, have decided to form a citywide tenants union to fight back against abusive landlords and housing injustice. We are Todos Santos Tenants Union.
It's been a long road to shift the dynamics in Concord, but I think because EBASE has done work in other places like Emeryville, we know that it's possible and it's there, and it's just bringing that to the city leadership to be able to see some change.